one. Every great life begins with a great morning. I've spent more than 40 years studying success. I've interviewed entrepreneurs, CEOs, self-made millionaires, and some of the most productive people on the planet. And after all that time, one truth keeps showing up again and again: your morning determines your momentum. The way you start your day doesn't just affect the first hour. It affects your focus, your energy, your confidence, and the quality of every decision you make afterward. I've seen people completely transform their productivity, their income, and even their happiness simply by changing what they do in the first 60 minutes after waking up. So let me ask you a question. How do you start your day right now? Do you wake up with purpose, or do you wake up reacting to your phone, your stress, and the demands of the world? I'd love to hear from you. Go down into the comments and tell me honestly, what is the very first thing you do in the morning? Because the truth is this: successful people don't start their day by accident. They start it by design. And today I want to share with you 7 essential habits that can completely change how your day unfolds. These are simple habits, but they are incredibly powerful. When you practice them consistently, they will sharpen your thinking, strengthen your discipline, and dramatically increase your productivity. Let's begin with the first habit. The first habit is waking up with intention. Most people wake up unconsciously. The alarm rings, they hit snooze 3 times, and they drag themselves out of bed already feeling behind. But high achievers treat waking up like a commitment. They decide the night before exactly when they will rise, and when the alarm rings, they get up immediately. One of the most important discoveries in the psychology of success is that discipline in small things creates discipline in big things. When you get up the moment your alarm rings, you win your first victory of the day. And that victory matters, because success is not built on giant leaps. It's built on small acts of self-control repeated over and over again. When you train yourself to wake up on time without hesitation, you strengthen what psychologists call your self-efficacy, your belief that you can control your actions and your outcomes. That belief becomes the foundation for every other success in your life. So here is a simple challenge I often give people. Tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings, sit up immediately. Don't negotiate with your mind. Don't hit snooze. Just get up. It sounds simple, but it sends a powerful signal to your brain. I am in charge of my day. And when you start the day with control, you carry that control into everything that follows. The second habit is something I consider absolutely essential for mental clarity. And that is spending a few quiet minutes thinking about your life and your goals. One of the biggest problems in our modern world is constant noise. Notifications, social media, emails, messages. From the moment people wake up, they allow the outside world to flood their mind. But successful people do the opposite. They begin their day with silence. In the early morning, your mind is fresh. Your brain is transitioning from the subconscious state of sleep into conscious awareness. This is one of the most powerful moments for reflection and creative thinking. I often sit quietly in the morning with a cup of coffee and simply think. I think about my goals. I think about the kind of person I want to be. I think about the most important results I want to create in my life. And this quiet thinking time is incredibly valuable because it gives direction to the day. You see, most people spend their day reacting. They react to emails, requests, problems, and distractions. But when you start your morning with deliberate thinking, you move from reaction to intention. You begin asking better questions. What matters most today? What action would move my life forward? What kind of person will I choose to be today? These questions create clarity. And clarity creates power. Because when your mind is clear about what matters, it becomes much easier to ignore what doesn't. The third habit that can dramatically change your mornings is moving your body. Now let me tell you something important about energy. Productivity is not just about time management. It is about energy management. If you have low energy, you will struggle to focus, struggle to think clearly, and struggle to perform at your best. But when your body is energized, your mind becomes sharper and more alert. Research consistently shows that even light physical activity in the morning can increase mental performance, improve mood, and raise your overall energy levels. You don't need a complicated workout routine. You don't need a gym membership. You simply need movement. It could be stretching. It could be a brisk walk. It could be push-ups, jumping jacks, or a short home workout. What matters is that you activate your body. When you move your body in the morning, you stimulate circulation, increase oxygen flow to the brain, and trigger the release of powerful chemicals like endorphins and dopamine. These chemicals naturally elevate your mood and motivation. In other words, movement creates momentum. I've often noticed that on days when I move early in the morning, my entire day feels different. My thinking becomes faster. My focus becomes stronger. My motivation becomes higher. And that's not an accident. Your body and your mind are deeply connected. When one becomes energized, the other follows. So if you want to increase your productivity and improve your focus, start with something simple. Move your body within the first 30 minutes of waking up. Even 5 minutes can make a difference. Because the goal is not perfection. The goal is activation. Now the fourth habit is something that separates highly productive people from the average person more than almost anything else. And that habit is planning your day before the day begins. I have taught time management to millions of people around the world, and I've discovered something fascinating. People who take just 10 minutes to plan their day can increase their productivity by as much as 20 to 30%. Think about that for a moment. 10 minutes of planning can give you hours of extra results. Why? Because planning forces you to think, and thinking improves decision making. When you write down your tasks and priorities in the morning, you gain clarity about what truly matters. Instead of drifting through the day, you move forward with purpose. You know exactly what needs to be done. You know what deserves your attention. And just as important, you know what can be ignored. One of the simplest and most powerful techniques I use is writing down my top 3 priorities for the day. Not 10, not 20, just 3. Because when you focus on 3 critical tasks, you dramatically increase the chances that those tasks will actually get done. And completing your most important tasks creates a powerful sense of progress. Progress builds confidence. Confidence fuels motivation. And motivation drives productivity. This is why I often say that clarity is the starting point of all success. When you know what to do, you can focus. When you focus, you perform better. And when you perform better consistently, success becomes inevitable. So every morning, take a few minutes with a notebook or planner and ask yourself one simple question. What are the 3 most important things I must accomplish today? Write them down. And commit to starting with the most important one. Because if you win the morning, you win the day. And if you win enough days, you eventually win the life you want. Now, in a moment, I'm going to share the next habits that can completely reshape the way your mornings work for you instead of against you. But before we continue, take a second and think about this. Out of the habits we've discussed so far, waking up with intention, spending quiet thinking time, moving your body, and planning your day, which one do you feel would change your mornings the most? Go down into the comments and tell me the number of the habit that stands out to you. Because awareness is always the first step toward transformation. Let me continue with the next habit that has had a profound impact on my own productivity and on the lives of millions of people I've worked with over the years. The 5th habit is feeding your mind with positive, purposeful input. One of the most powerful principles of personal development is this: your mind is like a garden. If you don't deliberately plant good seeds, weeds will grow automatically. And in today's world, negative information is everywhere. News, social media arguments, complaints, criticism. If you begin your day consuming that kind of input, you are essentially programming your mind for distraction, stress, and negativity. But successful people take control of what enters their mind, especially in the morning. The first thoughts you feed your brain each day shape your emotional state, your confidence, and your expectations. That's why I make it a habit to start my day by listening to something educational or inspirational. It might be an audiobook. It might be a personal development podcast. It might be a few pages from a powerful book. Sometimes I listen to ideas about leadership. Sometimes I review lessons about productivity. Other times I revisit concepts about goal setting or personal discipline. But the key is intentional input. When you feed your mind with ideas that strengthen your thinking, you create a mental advantage that most people never develop. Remember this: your external life is always a reflection of your internal world. If your mind is filled with clarity, optimism, and purpose, your actions will reflect those qualities. But if your mind is filled with confusion, negativity, and distraction, your actions will reflect that as well. You cannot consistently perform better than the thoughts you repeatedly entertain. So here's a practical action you can start tomorrow morning. Instead of reaching for your phone and scrolling through social media, spend 10 minutes feeding your mind with something that makes you smarter, stronger, or more focused. 10 minutes may not sound like much, but let's do the math. 10 minutes a day equals more than 60 hours of learning every year. 60 hours. That amount of focused learning can completely transform your thinking. And transformed thinking always leads to transformed results. Now, the sixth habit is something that may seem simple on the surface, but it has enormous psychological power. And that habit is visualizing your success. Many of the most successful people I've met use visualization as part of their morning routine. Athletes do it. Entrepreneurs do it. Leaders in every field, why? Because the mind responds strongly to clear mental pictures. When you vividly imagine yourself performing well, achieving your goals, and overcoming obstacles, your brain begins to treat those outcomes as familiar and achievable. You begin to feel more confident, more prepared, more capable. I often take a few moments in the morning to picture the kind of day I want to have. I imagine myself working with focus. I imagine completing my most important tasks. I imagine speaking clearly, making good decisions, and interacting with people positively. And what's interesting is that when you mentally rehearse success, your brain starts preparing your behavior to match that image. Psychologists call this mental rehearsal. Your brain does not always distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. So when you repeatedly visualize yourself acting with discipline, confidence, and clarity, those behaviors begin to feel natural. And when something feels natural, it becomes easier to perform. This is one of the hidden advantages of high performers. They don't just hope for success. They mentally prepare for it. They see it. They feel it. They expect it. And expectation is powerful. Because what you consistently expect often shapes what you ultimately experience. So tomorrow morning, try something simple. Close your eyes for 2 minutes. Picture yourself moving through the day with focus and determination. Imagine finishing the tasks that matter most. Imagine handling challenges calmly and intelligently. And imagine ending the day knowing that you used your time well. This simple exercise can create a surprising shift in your confidence and your behavior. Now, the seventh habit is one of the most important habits of all. In fact, if you master this one habit, it can multiply the effectiveness of every other habit we've discussed. The seventh habit is starting your day with your most important task. Over the years, I've studied productivity in extraordinary detail, and one pattern appears again and again. Highly successful people focus on high-value activities early in the day. Average performers, on the other hand, often start with easy tasks. They check email, they organize files, they respond to minor requests. And before they realize it, hours have passed without meaningful progress. But top performers reverse this pattern. They identify the single task that will make the biggest difference in their work or their life, and they begin with that task immediately. This idea is closely connected to a concept I often teach called eating the frog. The frog represents your most important, most valuable, and often most challenging task. It's the task that can create the greatest positive impact if completed. And it's usually the task that requires the most focus and discipline. When you tackle that task first thing in the morning, several powerful things happen. First, you make real progress before distractions can take over. Second, build momentum for the rest of the day. And third, you create a deep sense of accomplishment that boosts your motivation. Think about how different your day would feel if by 10 in the morning you had already completed your most important task. Your stress level drops, your confidence rises, and everything else you do afterward feels easier by comparison. One of the greatest enemies of productivity is procrastination. But when you develop the habit of starting with the most important work, you weaken procrastination's grip on your life. Instead of avoiding difficult tasks, you confront them immediately. And every time you do that, you strengthen your discipline. Discipline, after all, is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So here is a powerful question I encourage you to ask yourself every morning. What is the most valuable use of my time right now? Once you have the answer, start there, not later, not after checking messages, right away. Because the most successful people understand something that others often overlook. Your future is built on what you do first, not what you do last. And when you consistently start your day with meaningful work, you begin stacking small victories that eventually lead to extraordinary achievements. Now, as we move toward the final part of this conversation, I want to bring all of these habits together and show you how they combine into a powerful morning system that can dramatically elevate your productivity, your clarity, and your overall success. But before we continue, take a moment and ask yourself something honestly. Which of these habits are you already practicing, and which ones are missing from your mornings? Be honest with yourself, because real improvement begins the moment you recognize the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Now let me bring everything together. Over the years, I've learned something very important about success, and it's a lesson that many people overlook. Success is not a single event. It is a pattern. It's the result of small, intelligent actions repeated day after day, week after week, and year after year. The most successful people you see did not suddenly become extraordinary. They simply built powerful habits and practiced them consistently until those habits shaped their lives. Your morning routine is one of the most powerful patterns you will ever create, because the first hour of your day acts like a steering wheel for everything that follows. If the morning begins with distraction, chaos, and reaction, the rest of the day tends to follow that same direction. But when the morning begins with clarity, intention, and discipline, the entire day begins to move in a completely different direction. That is why these 7 habits matter so much. Let's quickly revisit them together. First, you wake up with intention. You get out of bed immediately and take control of the start of your day instead of surrendering to delay or hesitation. That simple act strengthens your discipline and sets the tone for everything that follows. Second, you spend a few minutes in quiet thinking. You allow your mind to become clear before the noise of the world enters your day. This thinking time creates awareness, direction, and purpose. Third, you move your body. You activate your physical energy, increase circulation, and awaken your mind so that you can approach the day with strength and alertness. Fourth, you plan your day. You write down your most important priorities so that your time is spent on meaningful activities instead of random distractions. Fifth, you feed your mind with positive and educational input. Instead of beginning the day with noise and negativity, you strengthen your thinking with ideas that inspire growth and improvement. Sixth, you visualize success. You mentally rehearse the kind of day you want to create and prepare your mind to act with confidence, discipline, and focus. And seventh, you begin your work by tackling your most important task. You focus on the activity that will produce the greatest results, and you move forward with determination. Now here is what is truly remarkable. None of these habits require extraordinary talent. They don't require special resources. They don't require a dramatic change in your life. They simply require a decision to become more intentional about how you begin each day. Most people underestimate the power of small, daily improvements. But when you practice these habits consistently, something powerful begins to happen. Your mornings become calmer, your thinking becomes sharper, your productivity increases, your confidence grows, and slowly, almost quietly, your entire life begins to move in a better direction. I've seen this happen thousands of times. A person changes the way they start their morning, and within weeks they begin to feel more organized. Within months they begin to accomplish more meaningful goals. Within years they look back and realize that their entire life trajectory has changed. That is the power of disciplined habits. The truth is, your future is not determined by occasional bursts of motivation. Your future is determined by what you do repeatedly. And morning habits are repeated every single day. Think about that. You have more than 300 opportunities every year to start your day with intention. 300 opportunities to strengthen your discipline. 300 opportunities to move closer to the person you want to become. When you begin to see mornings this way, they stop feeling ordinary. They become powerful. They become a daily opportunity to reset your focus and recommit to your goals. Now let me share one final thought that I believe is incredibly important. Do not try to change everything at once. One of the biggest mistakes people make in personal development is attempting to build 10 new habits overnight. And when they fail to maintain them all, they feel discouraged and give up. But success rarely works that way. Instead, choose just one habit from this list. Just one. Perhaps it's waking up immediately when the alarm rings. Perhaps it's planning your day every morning. Perhaps it's moving your body or feeding your mind with positive learning. Whatever habit stands out to you the most, start there. Focus on practicing that one habit every day until it feels natural. Then add another and another. This gradual approach allows your discipline to grow steadily without overwhelming your mind. Remember, lasting change is not about intensity. It's about consistency. A small habit practiced every day will always beat a big effort that happens only occasionally. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up, pause for just a moment. Recognize that you are standing at the beginning of a brand new day, a day filled with choices, a day filled with opportunities, a day that can move you one step closer to your best life. And ask yourself a simple question. How will I choose to begin? Because that choice, the way you start your morning, may seem small in the moment, but over time, it has the power to shape your confidence, your productivity, your success, and the quality of the life you create. Now I'd like to hear from you. Which of these 7 habits are you going to start practicing tomorrow morning? Write the number of the habit down in the comments below. When you make a public commitment, even a small one, it increases the likelihood that you will follow through. And if you found value in this message, share it with someone who wants to become more productive and more focused in their life. Because sometimes a single idea, heard at the right moment, can change the direction of a person's entire future. Thank you for spending this time with me. And remember this, every great achievement begins with a decision, often made in the quiet hours of the morning.